So good afternoon. So welcome to this small session on how to approach case studies, what is the framework, very brief, but certainly it would be in the form of it will be in the form so that it helps students attempting the case studies. Okay, so let's start this. Before we start, I hope you would have heard this, but it's most important in ethics is that this golden rule that treat others the way you want to be treated. So it's always been considered as the most basic of ethics message, that how the thing to be decided whether it is ethical or not, it is based on this particular basic idea that is called golden rule. Okay. Let us see. Now when it comes to we are directly going to jump on case studies because that's the main purpose of the course. Okay, sorry, session. So the most important part, and although I know most of you factually know it, but somewhere you are not consciously aware about this fact, and that fact is 120 marks. Now just for sake of comparison, think what is the contribution of marks that one subject like history brings in GS1, or geography alone brings in, okay, or international relations for that matter brings in, that none of them are individually equal to 120 marks. It's a it is almost half of the paper, which is not the case at all in other things. That is the importance of the case studies. And any books, so-called books, so-called material, so-called content that you are actually required to read for case studies, again answer is not very clear or almost nothing specifically for the case studies. Okay, what is required to be done most important is practice. So the point I was trying to communicate to you is the importance of case studies vis-a-vis its marks generally remains during the preparation. It's not that consciously people do not know it, but generally remains neglected because of perhaps overwhelming pressure that you feel from GS1, 2 and 3 and other parts. On the top of it, it's not just about 120 being 50% of the paper. The amount of return on investment that the case study in particular and ethics paper in general that actually gives you is much more than the same applicable to other topics or other subject, that is GS1, 2 and 3, and for that matter even comparable with optional for that matter. Okay, so important point is case study is very, very important, very crucial when it comes to your having maximum possible marks. And as I said, interestingly, it is very non-torturous, if I would use that word, to prepare. As if as compared to other topics where you have to prepare, you have to read and maybe revise, and sometimes it's not very pleasant. But when it comes to case studies, if you devise proper preparation system, you would experience that it is not as torturous as other subjects are. It is in fact much smoother if you do it in a systematic way, right? We'll come to it how to do it, and it's very, as I said, very smooth, very sometimes it is very satisfying, intellectually satisfying to attempt case studies. But for that you have to put a lot of efforts initially. Okay, so we'll go one by one. So this was just like the whole thing was ethics paper, so I was just focusing on case studies now. Now syllabus, what does syllabus say with respect to case study? Again, this also remains neglected by many students, that they don't go back to syllabus exactly and try to actually understand and internalize the wordings of what UPSC is trying to communicate through syllabus, because UPSC always try to stick to what they have written in the syllabus. This paper will include questions to test the candidate's attitude, approach to the issues relating to integrity, probity in public life. In general, you understand what they are talking about, and his problem solving approach to various issues and conflicts faced by him in dealing with society. Questions may utilize the case study approach to determine these aspects. Now, it is very evident here that the case study is one of the approach of the same content. Case study is the method, procedure, model to test the same thing. So, case study is not a separate syllabus. Case study is a separate method, separate tool, separate way of doing this particular thing, right? So, you need to understand one thing, case study is a way of understanding something, you know, and perhaps alternative way of understanding something. Alternative as in, otherwise it can be understood by theoretical questions or other things, but case study is one of the effective tool, and that's the tool they generally want to utilize here. Now, what is case study? Now, let's see what are the basics. See, there is this myth, and I would not call it myth. It's a ill effect of a habitual habit or habitual learning, that whenever we see a question paper, the immediately thing that comes to our mind is we have to answer it. When it comes to answer, we have a specific way of thinking in our mind, okay? Because in case studies, the kind of mental procedure that you are required to do in that 20 minutes is very different than the same you are required to do when it considered to be done in other GS theory questions. That is, that 20 minutes, what you would do, 20 minutes, 14 minutes, whatever the amount of time that you are required to write that answer, the kind of mental procedure required for GS 1, 2, 3 is different, and kind of mental procedure required especially for GS 4 and particularly for case study is very different. What is that difference? In case studies, you have to address to the situation. It is not answering the question in a conventional way. Like when you try to answer per se, what happens? You close your eyes, you remember, you know, something that you read, try to remember and try to reproduce. You try to remember NCRT or Lakshmikant or some newspaper article or something. You know, most of the questions are also in that way, factual. So, you are required to kind of collect the things and put it there. Here, you have to basically, like, one foot of yours should always be in that situation. You might be looking for answers somewhere else, you know, pointers, quotes, anecdotes, whatever that as per the demand of the question. But case study is actually a situation to be addressed, not question to be answered. So, never, and at least try to open up your mind when it comes to case study. So, never think that as some theoretical thing, though it is happening on the paper and the pen, but the approach required in the case study should not be and is not theoretical. It has to be practical. Your approach also has to be practical, because that's what the demand of the case study is. Many students, I would say many students, because of their mental habit of attempting to answer questions, they will always see case study as some kind of a question, theoretical question. You know, what is this answer? Like, that's the reason the automatic thing that comes to your mind is, you know, what is the model answer? What can be the better answer? See, yes, there can be better answer, but there is no one model answer, which might be the case in the theoretical questions, but not in the case study. So, it is not a question to be answered, but a situation to be addressed. Real life simulation. Case study is nothing but real life simulation, you know. if I ask you to kind of narrate some incident that happened yesterday or day before yesterday, something of that sort, you will narrate in a different way, and then you will, like for example, you will project a situation that you actually faced, and then you will ask someone, is that, you know, what would you have done if you would have been in my situation. That's what the case study means. It's a case. The very meaning of the case as against theory is something that is particularized, individualized in and implemented is called case. Okay, generally there is some theory, but when it comes to case, it is always individual, it is always associated with the practical issues and constraints, like that. So case study should be seen in that particular way. Second, theoretical clarity is necessary but not sufficient. Why case study is brought in by UPSC? Because theoretical understanding of things is okay, but it is necessary, but it is not sufficient when it comes to becoming a good bureaucrat, good civil servant. Theoretical clarity is not necessary. It's necessary but not sufficient. You have to do something extra than necessary. Obviously, it's always required that you should know what preamble is, what are the fundamental rights and fundamental duties and constitutional obligations and ethical obligations, what has been the socio-political culture in India, what are the role models, what is the importance of great personalities and their impact, what is the societal acceptance, what is to be done, what is not to be done. That is theoretically you should know. But when individual case comes, every case has to be tackled in a unique way. That's what the case study is. Okay, so for that, to bring in practical understanding, to bring in practical constraints and then solve, because we know you have the great you have the great dream, greater planning and all, but when it comes to actually doing those things, what happens? You are required to practically see so many things which perhaps were not part of your plan before, or rather it is never mentioned in any theoretical or bookish, for that matter, conception. In bookish and theoretical conception, what you do is in principle, but when it comes to really doing it, you need practical understanding. And how would you tackle case studies? On an average, every case study means, on an average, barring some few case studies, all case studies means simple this: ethical dilemma. What does the ethical dilemma means? What to uphold at the cost of what to compromise. It should always be there that what are you upholding and at what cost. Okay, and that's how you should look at the case study. Obviously, your ultimate aim is some solution, some stand. Okay, we'll come to it later. What are the different variants and what are the different things that case study actually comes into in the newspaper, in the question paper. So something that you will look for upholding at the cost of something that you would perhaps compromise, and the then justification of why this is the more important, and justification of how to convince that this compromising is better than compromising something else which you are trying to uphold. Okay, we'll come to it one by one. We'll try to solve one or two case studies also. Types of case studies: generally there have been three types of case studies if you see the themes or the inclination of the case studies till now. Number one is moral justification. So obviously, whether you will take bribe, why not you take bribe, would you take responsibility or you run away, how much risk would you take? So it's your own stand, moral justification. An important thing is, see, in case studies, many think that stand, yes, stand is important, but when it comes to our paper, more important is the justification of the stand and articulation of that justification, right? So justification is important and articulation of justification is important, right? Then this is one aspect where the stand is very, very important, which side you are in and how are you justifying it. Basically, justification is important. multi-front handling. Basically, there are some other case studies where stand is very clear, you know what to do, you know anybody else would do, but how would you do it? How would you tackle so many things together? You know, what are creative things would you do to convince this group, send some message to this, how to do it efficiently, how to finish the thing in the deadline, that kind of stuff. So in that, what happens? You are required to handle so many things together, and mind you, these are obviously exactly what you are expected to do once you are in service. Third type is, it's not very common, but sometimes they have asked, is general issue suggestion to a general issue kind of question. This question is more like a GS question. You know, sometimes they will ask you, in the case study, they will, you know, create some issue that, you know, migration from rural areas is happening, okay, and then what are the problems that are being faced by the elderlies in the village areas and stuff. So it's more like a recommendation, suggestion on issue. It's like a issue, but case study is not. Otherwise, case study is not an issue. I mean, case study is not any issue proper. It is a situation. Issue is very generalized way of looking at it. Like for example, we say that issue of corruption, and there is a, you know, big problem of issue of corruption in bureaucracy or corruption in politics, and there has to be stricter laws, and there has to be implementation. Supreme Court case, you know, the delivery of the you know, case solving by the case deliveries by the Supreme Court and the other court should be given more speed or done with a better speed and all that. These kind of things are part of GS answer. Here, one particular corruption case, Mr. Suresh is in this situation, is been asked to take the bribe and this and that, and what would you do? So there again, do not bring in, this is a corruption issue, you know, this is the act, you know, this should be done, that should be done. That should not be the tone of your answer, otherwise it will look like a GS answer. I am talking about basically normally the case study. 1 or 2 times they have come with this third type, very rare, okay, but at least I thought you should know that there are different types of case studies that they have asked till now. This is not about theme. There are many themes: corruption, sexual harassment, elderly people issues, irrigation issues, law and order, corporate governance, business administration, disaster management. I am not talking about the themes. Even those themes, the way of answering question has been of only these 3 types. In one, the justification is more important. The second, multi-handling is important, and third, like a general issue, which is very, very rare. Now, what are the variants of the question that they have asked? Because in the case study, 2 things are very, very important. One, once you read the case study, you should be able to imagine the situation that is happening as if it is happening in front of your eyes, and more so assuming the role that has been assigned to you. You know, you are a district magistrate, you are a SDM, whatever, and then try to imagine. That is very, very important, one thing. So you have to imagine as if it is happening. Second, you have to address to what is being asked as questions there. Because this is the problem. Once you have the case study, it is like an open-ended thing. You can comment on so many things. But what UPSC wants you to do is just focus on that particular area and answer accordingly. So whatever is asked, you should answer. Okay, like what all have been asked by UPSC till now. Most asked question is, what options do you have? So why this question is generally asked? Because the situation is such that you don't know what to do, or I am in some kind of a dilemma, I don't know what to do. If that kind of situation you are in, and then still you are required to decide something, that is called options. Then comes course of action. Now here, course of action means the important thing is the sequence of the thing. It's more of a practical thing. This is more of a moral aspect. that you have to take a side. What options do you have? Do you really have the option? And then obviously choose the option. Course of action is about how you manage things chronologically, smartly, efficiently. What all things would you do? What all things you do immediately? What all things things that you would do in midterm, and obviously for some long term if the situation requires. Then steps. Now, in the same course of action, sometimes they ask what steps would you take. Now, steps is proper concrete decisions that you take as a civil servant. Course of action is like a general thing. You'll do this and later followed by this and all that. But steps is what? Steps is something that you do. Steps is something that one after the other and more of a concrete decision. We'll take this decision. If this happens, then next decision. So these are the steps I would take. Or you take some 3, 4, 5 steps, specific steps to address that issue, because perhaps the issue has 3, 4 fronts. Then your stand. This is also one of the type of question it has been asked. Is what are the stand? Your stand. Your stand means basically this is obviously moral stand. They will ask that what would you do if in case this happens. So what stand would you take means obviously that stand has to have some justification. Okay. So this is also one kind of thing. Then some questions like decision. What would be your decision in this situation? Not much different. Justification. They would ask justification of somebody else's, like Mr. Rakesh has done something. Would you justify his steps, or is it justifiable for him to do that and all that? And then solution, as I said, if they ask some GS type question in the form of some problem, societal and otherwise, then you are required to write some solution. So these are the different variants that they have asked some questions like. Then demand of the case study. Now, what generally are the pointers which are very, very, very important when it comes to writing the answer for the case study? One, facts of the case. And it's not just about answering, it's about solving that case. Like if really that situation happens in front of you, you will look into, or you will take into consideration all these aspects. Number one, what are the facts of the case? Facts means who is what is what are the factual content as to how many people are protesting, when are they protesting since, what is the issue, who did what to him, who did what to whom. So all the factual data which has nothing to do with the interpretation much. This has what has happened to you, happened in front of you. Then comes stakeholders, obviously. Now, these things are very commonsensical things. Whatever I am telling you is not something new. Any situation, if you are also put, and I am sure you have been already put in many small situations wherein the first thing that you will ask, okay, hua kya hai? What has happened? Tell me. Tell me. Then automatically when you start thinking, the important thing that comes to your mind is who are the stakeholders, as in who are going to get affected if I do this or that. Automatic, right? If I do this, this particular person will be at disadvantage. If I do this, the other person will be at disadvantage. Person, situations, whatever way. Then very, very crucial, my role. Now this is very, very important. You should never you should never cross your limits of your role. You should never cross limits of your role, and you should always take responsibility of your role. So you should know your capacity, that is role, and you should also know your responsibility. That's something you should be doing. So it's like this. Something that is must expected from you, and something that is expected from you not to be crossed. Okay, it's like this. If you are a police officer, obviously you are expected to arrest or expected to catch hold of some criminal, but then you cannot cross the boundary of violence and violence in the custody and all those stuffs. You are not allowed to do it, even if the criminal is wrong. In front of your eyes the person has done something. You are not required to do it. You are not allowed to do it rather. many cases, this is a very simple example I am telling you. So, but many in administrative issues, you know what you should be doing. Like for example, as a SP of the district, you cannot suddenly decide, okay, I'll decide to do lathi charge because so many people have gathered, and I have got some call from the strong one of the strong MLA or MP from the political party in power, and I have to do it unless DM's permission, because without district magistrate's permission, something of this sort action cannot be taken by SP alone. So you should know your responsibility, you should know your role. Then what are the challenges? Now you want to solve the situation, you know something is there in front of me. Now you should know what are the challenges for me to, what are the hurdles that are in standing against me reaching that particular achievement or goal, or challenges basically, and this is generally what you are required to put your brain into and solve. What are the values involved while doing it? What values perhaps you have been compelled to compromise? What values are otherwise getting compromised because like in case you decide not to do anything, okay? Because situation means it needs your intervention. You need to understand one thing. Situation, case study means you need to feel that, you need to imagine that it actually needs your intervention. Otherwise, why would they ask you the case study? Just imagine a situation that you are sitting as a district magistrate, okay, and some people or group of people come to you for something. Now, why have they come to you? Obviously, they expect some intervention from you, and that intervention obviously would be based on values involved. Who is at what disadvantage, who is being treated not fairly, treated unjustly, everything has to be considered, and then you have to take on the basis of your own system. Then obviously decision and execution. Now, decision execution basically means, if you can link with the previous slide, option and course of action. Options and course of action, okay. Then justification, ethical, pragmatic, and obviously legal. This is a supporting point because you need to have justification on ethical ground, on pragmatic ground, like whether it is possible, not possible, that also has to be seen pragmatically, practically, and obviously the law. Then important points to remember with respect to case study. Number one, time management. Very, very, very important. In the case studies, for 20 marks, what you have is 14 minutes, on an average 14 minutes. Okay. Now, in 14 minutes, you know what all things you have to do. Number one, first, you call it fast reading or glance through. Then read proper. Then second reading, right? Then brainstorm, or I would say brainstorm, or the best way to say is rough work. Structure the answer, or structure the answer, structure the write-up, whatever you want to call it. You have to structure it in your mind or side, on the side of the your answer sheets as a rough work. Then you have to write. These are all things you are required to do in that 14 minutes. So you can, like for example, you can fast read 2 minutes, detailed read maybe 3 minutes, and brainstorm maybe 4 minutes, right? So you still have around another 5 to 6 minutes to write. Now you can change little bit. You can do brainstorming for 3 minutes, and you can कितना हो गया? तो again 6-7 minutes for writing. But these two are very, very important. you can, and if you practice it, this will be, the time will reduce. Within 2 minutes you will be able to write the whole case study. Then the next reading also you will be able to do it in maybe 1.5 minutes. Brainstorming will be perhaps faster because you already read it 2 times. Because case study needs a lot of time. Okay, ask those who have practiced in test series, who have done answer writing practice in case studies. It is always the case that you need time, and you will always feel that there is less time. But initially it will take time, but by the way, you have only 14 minutes. You need to understand one thing. You have only 14 minutes, that to max. Try to do it in lesser time if possible. Okay, and then you write as fast as possible. But one thing is very good, if you do proper brainstorming, structuring, what happens is you actually weed out the wrong points, weed out the things from your answer, and your answer will be crisp, smaller, I mean your write up, crisp, smaller, and it will take lesser time. These two things are very, very important because you should not miss any point. You should be able to gauge what exactly is being asked, rather than just writing something. Even if the question might say something, you should be able to decode what exactly, for example, what exactly is the demand of the question, in the sense, what exactly are the options available to me, on what all basis, what options can be feasible for me, what options can not be feasible for me. Then obviously you know the question, merits, demerits and all that. Okay, so very, very important, time management. Second, read at least 2 times. We already seen it in time management. Answer to be formatted as per the demand of the question. Now this is very important. What happens, for the same case study, there can be different set of questions. You might have seen the case studies. There will be write up, and there will be some 2 to 3 or sometimes 4 questions, right? What options do you have? Okay, write down the merits and demerits of each and every option. Which one of the options would you choose and why? Or give justification. General tendency is this. Sometimes they will ask, do the ethical analysis of the decision of Mr. Rakesh. What would you do if you were in his place? Or do you think Mr. X, person X or company X is right or morally correct? And if not, why? And what would you do? Do you think that this is a morally correct or right course of action that has been taken by XYZ? Like that they will ask. Ethically evaluate the options, that also sometimes they will ask, right? Then comes identify the goals, roles and responsibilities. We have already seen this. Very, very important. You need to boil down to exactly karna kya hai, you know, what is to be done, what is actually expected from me. That is very, very important to come down to. Then comes identifying the hurdles and challenges. We already seen this, very important. Come out with practical intervention. And when we say practical, that doesn't mean unethical, that doesn't mean anti-constitution, that doesn't mean against the law, okay, that doesn't mean against the ethical principles. But you have to come with some practical intervention. Intervention, the word intervention need to be understood here, not solution, not just theoretical explanation, some intervention, what exactly is to be done, okay. Otherwise, normally our tendency is, we'll do it in a better way. What is that better? What exactly would you do? Because this is a case study. Better implementation. These kind of things never work in ethics case study, because you have to explain exactly what would you do. Better systems, technology, intervention by technological solutions to improve the attendance of the staff. But what exactly would you do? This is like a general this thing. The answer should be the installing of biometric attendance machines, training the staff for the same, educating them about the importance of it. Like that, through training programs, you have to come to the concrete solutions. You cannot just write general. Then you need to understand one thing: course of action and options, they are different things from one another. Many people get confused. But we already explained this. Course of action is about what all things would you do, what are the actions that will take, course of action. When it comes to options, it's more of a exclusive thing, accept, do not accept, or do some compromise, okay, or report maybe some cry or maybe some event, report to the public, or no, do not report to the public, or report through something else. Generally there are three options, two extremes and one central point. Generally, I am not saying that's always the case, there can be 4 or 5 options also, but options should not be like steps. Okay, there is some disaster management happening and issue happening, some flood has come and all that, and like there was a question in the paper that you have very limited number of boats, so whom would you save first? Would you save the politician? Would you save the elderly? Would you save the patients? Would you save the women and children? Would you save like that? Now here the question is about options. You cannot say I have an option of choosing this and option of option of saving the politician, then I have an option of saving the children for that matter, or elderly. See, in this particular case you have to give justification as to why and who should be the first in this process, because you have limited number of boats. You should be able to tell you who is going to be the first. That's the question. Otherwise, if you had more number of boats, then there is no confusion. The situation never arises. You need to understand one thing. Every case study is a situation which needs some intervention, without which there will be some damage, public damage, some resource damage, some damage of some lives, economic damage, something. If you do not intervene, something wrong, something bad, something damaging, disadvantage is going to happen. So that's why status quo 99.99% cases, status quo is never the answer, because if status quo is the answer, why would they ask case study? Okay, what should you be do? We should be doing nothing. Abhi to kuch nahi karna. We have to wait and watch. If that's the case, then why would they ask case study, right? Additional point to reduce negative impact of the demerits. Most of the time, this also people forget. Now, when you take some, choose some option, what happens is the merits on the basis of which you actually chosen the option gets followed by demerits automatically. If you choose something, if you choose to reject the bribe, okay, you get the call from your senior, and again that question has been part of the PYQs, part of the UPSC paper, that you have been asked to take the money, and they know that you need the money for your father's surgery, a lot of money you need, or son's surgery, whichever way, and if you do it, some procedural activity will go on, though not in a legal way or ethical way, but I mean legal way it is happening, but ethical way it's not happening. You are choosing or you are preferring someone who is otherwise not the best candidate, only because you will get some money, and anyway he is not bad, so you will be able to perform his duties. Only thing is he is 1 or 2 marks lesser than the other candidate who is not in the position to pay you. Now here obviously you will say that I will not accept the money. Now you not accepting money will come up with some consequences, that how would you do the operation then, and you have to reduce the influence of demerits to the extent possible. So not just I would not accept is the answer. That's the half answer. It's not it's a partial answer. You have to also talk about as to what would you do along with this. What would you do to tackle the operation of a like the issue of health issue of the person, or operation of your father or son? How would you manage the money for that? Something has to be done for that. It may not happen, but at least you have to mention in your answer that some additional efforts to reduce the influence of demerit, impact of demerit. Okay, then comes don't add, don't miss. Yes, this is also very important. Sometimes what happens, the kind of case study that they have asked, it's very similar to something that has happened recently in actual life. Yes, that might be the case, because most of the case studies they have been asking of late is been directly coming from the things that are actually happening in the world. But that does not mean that you should borrow directly from the real life examples. You should never straight away take from, okay, equating that, अरे ये तो case study वो वाला है, this is the case study of train accident and this is exactly the case study of Balasore train accident, तो उसमें तो ऐसा हुआ था. Don't assume the additional fact that is not mentioned in the case. Okay, and don't miss whatever is being mentioned may not be actually the part of the real case. They might have changed a little bit. You should never miss whatever is mentioned in the case. You should always consider each and every fact that is mentioned in the case. Okay, and it's not GS answer, we already discussed. Don't give gyan there. This issue, like for example, you are that regional director of the traffic management of the railways. Some particular incident happens where the two train collapses in your own district, vagera vagera, and you are getting the call from this, that, now, and you came to know that it's a human error, blah blah, many facts. Then what would you do? What are the course of action? What are the options that you have? Never get into this futile exercise of writing train accident is a national issue, it's a safety issue, it needs a urgent intervention from all the levels of the administration. This is the GS answer. You are not required to talk about the general issue of train accident. You have to talk about this train accident that happened in your district. What would you do next? So that's the reason you start with the facts, then with your role and responsibility, then the challenge, the intervention that is expected from me, then the challenges to that intervention, and then justification of what all you are doing. That is the, see, the case study means only this much. Okay, the roles and responsibility, fact, role and responsibility, intervention, that is aim, your dream, aim, achievement, challenges to reach there, and justification, moral and otherwise, legal and all that. So accordingly you should be thinking. Now how would you do it? Brief of the case. So facts, stakeholders, roles and responsibilities and challenges. So briefly in one paragraph, okay, 7-8 lines, you can mention these things. No need to separately have a heading of this is the stakeholder, this is the role, this is the responsibility, not required. What you can do is very briefly, because this is not part of the question. It's just like what we do in introduction in your typical GS answer. Here what you would write, what would you write is what all are the brief mentions of the case, that is this accident has happened, it has come to me, my responsibility is this, the most important role that I should be playing is this, and the urgent intervention that is required from my this thing is this, the basic responsibility that I have is like saving lives, law and order, whatever, and the biggest challenge that is there in front of me is this race against time, or you have less time, whatever, you less resources, whatever. Okay, after that basic things, then directly come to what exactly are the questions. Normally the questions are, after the case study is over, there will be some 3 to 4 questions. You might have seen this. So sometime, most of the time, they will ask what options do you have, merits and demerits, and choose and justify. Normally, I am saying most of the question, but not always. So then directly come to this A. Your answer should also options, like that you should start, and then start writing. Then if you are writing B, after your briefly you have written the, as we already mentioned, brief of the case. After you wrote points, then you write merits and demerits, and then third, choice, and in that justification, or maybe in the choice only you can write justification, because when you choice, obviously you will be automatically writing the justification thing, right? No need to conclude unless it's a GS type. Yes, many people ask this question, sir, should be writing the conclusion. See, generally it is, if the tone of the case study is not of a general type, why would you conclude? What would you conclude? If you want to write 1 or 2 lines, you can write, but generally, like in the case study that we talked about, train accident that has happened in your district and all that, what will happen? You will write that these things will be done, report will be submitted, action will be taken, blah, 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 you know, all the things, future, long term, short term, medium term and all. And what would you conclude? It's not some theoretical answer when you sum up in the conclusion or ultimate conclusion. But yes, if the question is of GS type, maybe you can write just a passing reference as in the form of conclusion. Okay, so that's the theoretical or basic understanding that I wanted you to communicate, wanted to communicate to you. Let's practice some case studies, right? Let's see some case study from, okay, let's see the case study number 3. This is actually case study number 1, but it's okay. They have 1 or 2 are there. This is case number 3. Yes, you are the headmaster in a private school. In your school, there is a highly qualified, efficient, competent, and performing teacher who is also considered a role model by the students. He is responsible for teaching the class A of the 10th standard, where all bright students of your school are clubbed together. Okay. The board exam for the 10th is approaching and there is pressure to complete the syllabus as early as possible so that the students can prepare and revise well before the exam. Now, these students have a great potential to score good in the exam and your school's performance appraisal depends on the result. However, you have recently come to know that in personal life, the teacher is very regressive in attitude, his behavior at home is highly patriarchal, and he does not treat his wife and daughter in the dignified manner. Along with this, he has also posted some misogynist comments on the social media. The students in your school also use the same social media platform, and there are chances that they might cite those regressive comments and get influenced by it. Analyze the situation and suggest what actions you will take. Justify your actions. Okay, now you need to understand the thing. What is the situation in front of you? What are you? First of all, you are a headmaster. Okay, so you see what are the facts of the case. I am a headmaster. You no need to write in this form. I am just bringing out the fact for you to understand. You highlight those, and while writing, you summarize it. Okay, best performing teacher is considered as role model. He is responsible for the class 10. Very, very important, and it's very important for the class also to have better results in 10. Board exam approaching, pressure to complete the syllabus. So these are all facts. Okay, students have great potential and it depends upon completion of syllabus. Same teacher in personal life, patriarchal, misogynist comments on social media. Now there are 2 issues here. Person is patriarchal in personal life, that is one thing, and social media misogynist comment, that is another thing. Students also present on the same social media platform, chances of the wrong influence on students, right? Responsibilities, challenges in front of me. What are the challenges? Complete the syllabus, very important. Maintain the quality, because if you as a headmaster, the most important thing for you is complete the syllabus, maintain the quality, potential of the student to be utilized. Confirm the issue, because this might be just a hearsay, but most of the things that are written in the case studies are true, but you as a headmaster, because this is a different issue, you confirm it. Action to discourage such a behavior, you can, there are different actions we'll talk about, and guard the students from exposure to misogynist thought on social media. Okay, so these are the challenges in front of me that I have to do it somehow, because that's my responsibility of headmaster. So here, can you see this? The hierarchy is also very important. The completion of syllabus, maintenance of the quality, potential of the student is the largest responsibility I have. Okay, then about the issue, something can be done. Now, challenges, what are the challenges? Lack of time, because you cannot, remove him and somebody else will take over and who will finish the syllabus. So you have lack of time because exams are approaching. Omnipresent nature of the social media, acceptance to the patriarchal mindset of the society in general. Nature of the issue is personal. That is also one challenge, at least one of the subjects, one of the topics. The other one, social media, you can still call as a non-public, non-personal. Students see him as a role model. That's also another issue. Now, analysis. Need to confirm the issue. That is one thing. Okay. Teacher has knowledge but lack integrity. That's the very important point here. So, the main problem with the teacher is he has knowledge but he lacks integrity. He deserves a chance of explanation to the school. Yes, certainly he deserves. Role model, serious impact on the minds. Patriarchy product propagates further. So, he is trying to kind of like unknowingly, knowingly propagating that misogynist thing, patriarchal things further, which actually we should be putting our efforts to stop. Anyway, individual discussion in good faith, this gives him so these are the actions. So, individual discussion, will talk to him in good faith if this is the case, because removing social media post and talking to him and all is much better, because it's a different thing. Although he has done misogynist and other things, he has not done anything with respect to his professional life directly. There is an impact indirectly on the students, but not directly. This gives him opportunity to put his side objectivity. Meanwhile, information from other sources to confirm. Obviously, if information is true, ask to apologize, remove the social media posts. If repeats the strict action, show cause followed by suspension, zero tolerance to the misogynist. That is for sure. If similar thing on social media and things other, if keeps doing, then you will be removed. Meeting with the other relevant staff to be ready, efficiency and quality, because then you have to talk to the other staff so that what happens, you actually can make yourself ready for the next thing. You have to make yourself ready for the some situation wherein you are required, you are forced to suspend him, then somebody has to take care of the syllabus, because you are headmaster. It's not just about moral, you have to also look into what are the impacts of my strong moral stand and how would I tackle it. I might think morally superior that okay, remove him, but then who would take the syllabus? That's the practical problem you have to tackle. Ask for a report of the status of the completion of the syllabus. Regular monitoring of the work, quality and time. All students, no mobile phones in the school premises. Issue discussion in the next parent-teacher meeting. These two issues are new creative kind of suggestion that okay, let's not bring in mobile, especially student having are 10th and lesser, 10th standard and lesser. Why should they need mobile, at least in the premises of the school? And in the parent-teacher meeting also this can be communicated to them that let's not give mobiles to them. At least the mobile should not have any social media per se. They can have their own learning models. You can have other apps, puzzle app and other things, knowledge modules, but not social media, because you don't know how to control that social media. You know what is impacting your child. So that can be very well communicated, because then larger issues coming into picture, and it is also good that as headmaster you are thinking in a larger way. Okay, let's see some PYQ case studies. So that's how this particular case study has to be analyzed. Okay. Now see this case study. This has been case study I think in 2022. Rakesh was working as a joint commissioner in transport department of a city. As a part of his job profile, among others, he was entrusted with the task of overseeing the control and functioning of the city's transport department. A case of strike by the drivers union of the city transport department over the issue of compensation to driver who died on duty while driving the bus came up before him for decision in the matter. He gathered that deceased driver was playing. He gathered that this deceased driver, the driver who got killed, was plying the bus number 528, which passed through busy and congested roads in the city. It also happened that near an intersection on the way, there was an accident involving the bus and the car driven by the middle-aged man. It was found that there was altercation between the driver and the car driver. Heated arguments between them led to the fight and driver gave him a blow. Lot of passerbys had gathered and tried to intervene, but without success. Eventually, both of them were badly injured and profusely bleeding and were taken to the nearby hospital. The driver succumbed to the injuries and could not be saved. The middle-aged driver's condition was also critical, but after a day he recovered and was discharged. Police had immediately come to the spot of the incident and FIR was registered. Police investigation revealed that the quarrel in the question was started by the bus driver and had resorted to physical violence. So, driver himself is at fault. There was exchange of blows between them. The city department management is considering of not giving any extra compensation to him. So, whatever compensation is there, will give it, but extra because he died on the duty and stuff, that will not be given. The family is very aggrieved, depressed and agitated against the discriminatory and non-sympathetic approach of the city department, transport department management. The bus driver deceased was 52 years of age, was survived by his wife and 2 school-going daughters. He was the sole earner of the family. The city department workers union took up this case and when found no favorable response from the management, decided to go on strike. The union's demand was twofold. First was the full extra compensation as given to the drivers who died on the duty, and secondly, employment to one family member. The strike has continued for 10 days and deadlock remains. Now, what are the options available to Rakesh? Critically examine each option identified by Rakesh. What are the ethical dilemmas being faced by the Rakesh? What course of action would Rakesh adopt to diffuse the situation? Very long case study, 4 questions to be answered. One of the tough case studies in the sense when it comes to addressing it or writing it. Okay. Now, as you know, the situation is, and I'm sure that you have you have been able to immediately as simultaneously able to imagine the case study. Okay. So, Rakesh is a joint commissioner, he has to take the decision. His decision has to be, now the point is there are details of facts, but the main point is now the department staff, drivers, basically they are doing the dharna, okay, they are doing the protest, okay, and this strike has continued for 10 days and the deadlock remains. So, last 10 days nothing has happened. They are asking for so many things. Basically what they are asking is, whatever might have been the case, the driver also might have been at the fault, he should not have got into the quarrel, he should not have got into the violence, physical violence, of which he himself became victim later on. There was no intention from the other side, the middle-aged man who was driving the car, but it just happened, it's more of an accident. But the moral and ethical responsibility was with driver not to engage in the physical violence or quarrel for that matter. Some here and there he should have just, so he only started the fight and he had to lose his life. Now, what the department has denied is extra payment of compensation and the job, okay. Secondly, employment to one family member. Strike has continued for 10 days and the deadlock. Now, here you know, the staff, the drivers union, what are they doing? They are clearly assuming that this is the death on duty, okay. And what the administration is thinking, it is not death on duty, it's more like a taking the responsibility of your own death. The one should take the responsibility of your own death, and that's the reason you have not been given any extra compensation, because it was your mistake. You only got into all this altercation and quarrel, you only got hit, you hit someone else, he hit back. So, it's more of a personal issue. So, the reason for your death is neither traffic nor the duty, it is because of you getting into that system, okay. So, what are the options available to Rakesh to meet the above situation? Basically, number one, first and foremost, have like whether to agree to provide the things that the union is asking or do not provide, or third thing is have a balance between, okay, at least provide money if not job. Okay, they what all they are asking is some extra money and the job. So union's demand was twofold. So whatever, like if he would have been given 10 lakh rupees, union is saying no, give 20 lakh and the job because on duty and stuff, and that extra 10 lakh this administration is not ready to give, job administration is not ready to give. So first choice is do not accept them, just take strict action against the strikers. Second, because the they are doing the strike and it's apparently at least the death on the duty, so provide them whatever is they are asking. Second option. Third option is balance between the two, that no, cannot say completely that just give it because he has to take the responsibility. So something, either extra money can be withheld or the job to the family member can also be withheld. Okay, so these are three options. Now critically examine each and every options. So obviously you give both the sides, like in one side there is strict implementation of law, fixing the responsibility. The other side it is compassion for the school going daughters and wife who is otherwise not earning and other stuff. Both the sides like that, and vice versa would be the case in the case of other option, that is option of giving the money. So you actually, if you are giving money also, job also, what you are doing is, okay, he might have got into the altercation, but it's not completely his responsibility, but the responsibility of the whole situation perhaps. So you are putting the responsibility on the situation. But then demerits, and the demerits is like you are setting up a bad precedent, because then tomorrow somebody goes drunk on the duty and does some accident and he also dies, then again family members will say that we also need money. And there are some procedural issues, like if you are drunk and drive, something of that sort, if it is proven, then you will not be given any compensation for sure, because responsibility lies with you. You cannot even ask, it's not moral, like that. So both the sides you have to write. As many aspects you can bring in, those many aspects you have to bring out. What are the ethical dilemmas? The most important ethical dilemma is about the wife and the children, that is family. The economic hardship the family is going to face because of this death. So that compassion aspect is going to actually bother you. Dilemma is whether you go along with the procedure or you go with the compassion. This generally procedure versus compassion has always been classic of UPSC. Okay. What are the ethical dilemma? Yes, what are ethical dilemma, and what are the course of action would Rakesh adopt to diffuse the situation? Then putting all together, then one by one you tell the steps. First, I will talk to the groups of the strikers or the people who are doing strike. Talk to their leaders, try to communicate to them, explain them the laws and all that. Second, call the family members and try to talk to them directly if possible. Then communicate the issue to the, if you are required to have a sanction of a higher authority for if you decide to do it, then give the sanction. Then if they are not listening, the strikers are not listening to, or they are not ready to call off the strike, then send the strict notice to them and all that. So course of action one after the other you do. So point is, whatever options, logic and ethical explanation that you gave, course of action you have to point by point implement it. So in there you have to think exactly, or think as if actually those things are happening in front of you, and accordingly you are taking the decision. Okay. So that's how this particular case can be tackled. I hope this has been of some use to you. I tried to discuss 2 case studies. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. If you have further, those who are going to watch my videos later on, if you have any doubts, you can put it on comments. We will try to answer them. Okay. and especially for this mains, people who are going to appear for this mains, we are going to as every year we are going to come up with the crash course, because what happens most of the times with the most of the students, ethics actually remains on the back burner, especially for those who are writing mains first time and all that. So what happens when ethics remains on the back burner, suddenly after the prelim is over, or especially after the result, they get suddenly, you know, kind of they get the big question as to from where now ethics can be done. So for that purpose only, immediately after the result, maybe 3-4 days or a week's time, we will be starting ethics module as every year we do, which is anyway coupled with test series. So we will be covering around some 15 to 20 lectures, mostly 15 to 16, 17 like that lectures. The most important purpose for those lecture is proper orientation of ethics, okay, or rather I would call it deorientation of ethics. That is, your misconceptions, your your habitual thinking with respect to ethics and GS, we have to deconstruct that, make it easy, simple and straightforward for you to think right in the right direction. One. Second, we will be doing a lot of PYQ exercises the way we do now, or maybe with little more detailed. So case studies, not just case studies, quotes, theoretical questions. So we will be trying to solve the question sitting in the class. There will be homework questions which obviously I will be evaluating, and obviously there will be tests followed by that. As I said, test series is coupled with this. So that program is basically tailor made for the students who want to kind of refresh their and brush up and revise and answer writing of the ethics after their result comes. Maybe result will be coming in next 1 or 2 days. That has been said. And another thing is, apart from the class, that 3 hours you will be sitting, only thing that you are required to do is solve more problems, nothing else. Obviously your newspaper reading, other things will continue for your GS and other stuff, GS 1, 2, 3. But the model is such that sitting here, all your doubts, all your orientation issues, everything will be cleared in the class. Answer writing also will be done in the class. Not just token answer writing, substantial answer writing will be done. You will be given time to write, and once you go back home, you can do homework. And this answer writing in the class, like attend in the class and homework, is the only homework is like maybe 1 hour per day, or not even every day, maybe 4 days a week, 5 days a week. So this is the only thing that you will be doing for ethics. That too only 15 to 17 lectures. After that, you just prepare for yourself, write answers, write test series, write answers, write test series. That's all. Ethics is done. No need to, there won't be some bundle of material that you have to go through, you have to read, and then only you'll understand. Nothing of that sort is going to happen. So we have to make it very, very compatible to your other preparation. Okay. So we have tried to made in that way. I hope to see you in that particular class. Okay. Thank you very much. All the best.